If you ever drive through Indiana in early October, you'll notice three things. The air smells faintly like cinnamon and diesel, there's always a pumpkin patch within 10 minutes of wherever you are, and every small-town resident believes their corn maze is the best one in America. Mapleton, population 5,000 and a few lost tourists, was no exception. It had picket fences, Friday night football, and a diner that served coffee so strong it could file your taxes. It was the kind of town where everyone waved, even if they weren't sure who you were, and gossip spread faster than free Wi-Fi. Enter Jack Miller, 34, local handyman/freelance graphic designer, divorced 3 years, owner of 2 screwdrivers, 3 bills past due, and 1 rapidly declining sense of direction, in life and otherwise. On this fine Saturday morning, Jack stood in front of the Mapleton Harvest corn maze, holding a folded map, a lukewarm coffee, and the vague hope that this festival might fix his mood, or at least his boredom. Every year, same corn, different confusion, he muttered, looking up at the sprawling golden field stretching out like nature's practical joke. The weather was picture perfect, blue sky so clear it looked Photoshop, air just chilly enough to make you think you needed a jacket but not cold enough to actually justify one. Jack wore a worn denim jacket, flannel shirt, jeans that had survived more paint spills than he'd admit, and a pair of boots he'd owned since college. He had that look of a man who'd just accepted that life was 80% trying and 20% pretending you have it under control. Across the dusty parking lot, families laughed, kids carried caramel apples bigger than their faces, and somewhere, a teenager played country pop on a Bluetooth speaker loud enough to ruin the serenity. A banner stretched across the gate read, "Welcome to Mapleton's Great Maze, get lost, find yourself." Jack snorted. Yeah, sure, because nothing says self-discovery like walking in circles surrounded by corn. Behind him, Cynthia Bell, the retired teacher turned maze director, was barking orders at volunteers. Hay bales to the left. Funnel cakes to the right. And somebody find Trevor Diaz before he live streams another maze survival challenge from the wrong parking lot. Trevor, a 29-year-old YouTuber with too much energy and not enough common sense, was already setting up his GoPro. What's up, maze fam? Today we're testing whether grown men can navigate without Google Maps. Jack sighed. I can already tell this day's going to end with someone calling 911. At the entrance, old Frank, the maze map seller, sat in his folding chair under a hand-painted sign that read, "Maps, $2 or free advice you didn't ask for." Frank was 71, wiry as barbed wire, with a smirk that said he knew everyone's secrets but would only tell you if you brought him pie. Jack, Frank drawled, adjusting his baseball cap, you look like a man who came here to find more than the exit. Jack raised an eyebrow. You're not gonna start with fortune cookie talk, are you? Depends. You want the map or the lesson? Whichever's cheaper. Frank handed him the map with a wink. Then here's your freebie. Sometimes you gotta get lost a while before you find where you were headed. Jack sipped his coffee. Sounds like something you read on a bathroom wall. Yeah, Frank said, but it's still true. That knowing tone that says, our hero has no idea he's about to take that advice literally. Jack stepped into the maze. Corn taller than him rustled in the wind, dry stalks whispering like an audience waiting for something dumb to happen, and they wouldn't be disappointed. 10 minutes in, he realized the map was more confusing than helpful. It looked like someone had drawn it after 3 margaritas. The north path pointed west, the scenic route looped back to the start, and the shortcut ended abruptly at a scarecrow holding a sign that read, "Nice try." He wasn't the only one struggling. A couple argued nearby. You said turn left. I meant your left. Somewhere, a kid was crying about losing a balloon to the sky. Again, and an old man yelled, follow the sun. Which was useless advice because the sun moved. Jack laughed, half in amusement, half in disbelief. Yup, this is America's metaphor right here. Confident people walking in circles arguing about directions. By noon, his coffee was gone, his patience was short, and his phone had 4% battery left. He considered climbing the corn like an action hero, but quickly decided he didn't have the core strength or insurance for that. Then he heard it, a distant shout. Hey, you lost too? It was Maggie Chen, the café owner from downtown, holding a half-eaten pretzel and a reusable water bottle that read, espresso yourself. She looked effortlessly put together, olive jacket, scarf, jeans, hiking boots, like someone from a fall clothing ad who also managed payroll and 3 suppliers. Define lost, Jack said. She grinned. You don't know where you're going, but you're pretending you do. Then yes, I'm thriving. They decided to team up. It made sense. 2 adults with decent survival instincts and 1 functioning phone battery. Maggie checked her GPS app, which promptly announced, location unavailable. She laughed. Figures. Even satellites don't care about Mapleton. As they wandered, they talked about small town routines, Jack's stalled freelance projects, her cafe's broken espresso machine, and how everyone secretly wanted to move somewhere warmer but never actually did. Every so often, they'd bump into other townspeople, Trevor filming dramatic maze update videos, kids trading snacks like mini stockbrokers, Cynthia holding a walkie-talkie yelling, "No, turn left by the tractor." There was something weirdly comforting about it. All these people lost together, laughing, occasionally swearing at corn. At one point, a breeze rustled through, scattering a few leaves. Maggie looked around, amused. You ever notice how being lost feels less scary when other people are lost too? Jack smirked. Yeah, misery loves company. So does confusion. Or maybe we're just finding new paths by accident. Wow, Jack said, that's either deep or caffeine withdrawal talking. As the sun started tilting west, long shadows stretched through the maze. Jack realized they'd walked in at least 5 loops. He could tell because the same scarecrow now had a pigeon sitting on its head like it had been waiting for them. And then came the moment that would later be the story everyone in town retold, the sprinkler incident. Somewhere in the maze, an automatic irrigation system kicked on unexpectedly. Jets of water shot out like ambush sprinklers in a movie. Maggie screamed, Jack ducked, and a dozen other maze-goers scattered like startled ducks. Water hit the dry corn leaves, glistening in the orange light. It was chaos and slapstick perfection. Jack burst out laughing mid-sprint. This is it. This is my rock bottom. Running from sprinklers in a maze of poor life decisions. Maggie was laughing too, hair-soaked, scarf clinging to her like seaweed. You mean our rock bottom? Equal opportunity disaster. When they finally stopped, drenched but breathless, Jack realized something rare. He hadn't thought about his job, his bills, or his ex-wife for 2 full hours. He was just there, laughing, ridiculous, alive. As dusk fell, Cynthia's voice came over the loudspeaker. Attention maze-goers. Due to unforeseen irrigation issues and mild chaos, the maze will close in 15 minutes. Please proceed to the nearest exit. Jack looked around at the endless walls of corn. Nearest exit. She might as well say nearest time portal. They wandered another 10 minutes, following voices, until they spotted old Frank standing by an opening. Congratulations, Frank called. You found the exit. Jack pointed. That's the entrance. Frank shrugged. It's all about perspective, son. Jack groaned but couldn't stop smiling. The whole day had been absurd, but in a weird way, it felt like progress. He hadn't solved his life, but he'd stopped sulking long enough to laugh at it. As he and Maggie walked back toward the parking lot, Maggie said, So, lesson learned. Jack smirked. Never trust a maze map or a man named Frank. Or maybe, she said, that getting lost isn't failure. It's proof you're still moving. He looked at her, then at the sunset glinting off her water bottle. You sure you're not secretly writing self-help books? She smiled. Just coffee cups. The kind that makes you feel like something quietly important just happened. Because sometimes, losing your way in a maze, literal or otherwise, is exactly what forces you to stop walking on autopilot. Sometimes you have to trip through mud, dodge sprinklers, and laugh with strangers before you realize you weren't stuck. You were just circling the exit you hadn't noticed yet. And in Mapleton, Indiana, under that glowing October sky, a man named Jack Miller started finding the edges of his maze, one sarcastic laugh at a time. If you asked anyone in Mapleton what they remembered most about last year's Harvest Festival, they'd probably say, the sprinkler incident. Someone even uploaded a clip titled, When Cornfields Attack, and it got 42,000 views, which, in Mapleton metrics, was practically going viral. But for Jack Miller, that muddy, ridiculous, laughter-soaked day had become something else, the start of, well, something. He didn't quite know what. Autumn had drifted into its cinematic middle act, that cozy part where leaves turned the color of old pennies, porch lights came on early, and everyone pretended to enjoy pumpkin spice everything. The air had that crisp snap that made you wear flannel and feel like you were in a Folgers commercial. Jack sat outside Maggie's café, sipping actual good coffee for once. The café, been there, done that, was Mapleton's unofficial therapy center, gossip hub, and caffeine altar. Inside, the walls were brick, the air smelled of espresso and muffins, and an ancient jukebox occasionally groaned out a country classic. Jack had his laptop open but wasn't doing much work. Instead, he was doodling something. A maze, oddly enough. with arrows pointing toward different words: routine, fear, regret, hope. In the middle, he'd drawn a little stick figure labeled, me, deep thoughts, or procrastination. Maggie asked, setting a new cup in front of him. Both, he said. I'm calling it the maze of my poor life choices. She smirked. You know, it's surprisingly accurate. Missing a section labeled, bad dates, though. He pointed. Top left corner. She laughed. Touché. Since the festival, they'd been talking more. Sometimes about nothing, sometimes about everything. Maggie's espresso machine was finally working again, and Jack had helped fix the sign out front, which earned him exactly 3 free cappuccinos and an unsolicited pep talk. Still, Jack felt restless. He'd been doing odd jobs around town, repairing fences, repainting garages, fixing door hinges, but he wanted something more. The maze had stirred something in him. Not an epiphany exactly, more like an itch he couldn't scratch. That's when Cynthia Bell, Mapleton's retired teacher and reigning queen of community projects, walked into the café, radiating purpose like a human sunrise. Jack, she called out, startling 3 customers. I need your help. With what? Another corn maze. Because I still have PTSD from irrigation systems. She waved a folder dramatically. Bigger. The town council wants to convert the old Fairview lot into a community park. Walking paths, benches, maybe even a mini maze for kids. I told them you'd be perfect to design it. Jack blinked. Me, I build shelves and fix gutters. You also doodle metaphors about mazes, Maggie added. Cynthia nodded approvingly. Exactly, you have vision, heart, and free afternoons. That's basically leadership in Mapleton. The narrator chuckled here, the kind of laugh that recognizes opportunity showing up disguised as volunteer work. By the next week, Jack was knee-deep in the Mapleton Park project. Literally knee-deep, because the lot was muddy, overgrown, and home to one raccoon family that refused eviction. Still, something about it felt right. He sketched out ideas. Curved walking trails shaped like puzzle pieces, benches facing the sunset, a small community garden. The centerpiece, a mini maze, not to get lost in, but to find your way through. Short paths, clear routes, little signs with quotes like, every step counts, and, sometimes the long way around is the point. When he told Maggie, she smiled that slow, knowing smile. So you're building a maze that helps people not get lost? He nodded. Guess I'm working through my issues in landscaping form. She handed him a scone. Therapy's cheaper when it comes with carbs. As autumn deepened, Mapleton rallied behind the project. Ryan, the UPS driver, dropped off supplies and stayed to hammer a few boards. Old Frank brought lemonade and unsolicited advice. Make sure there's only one exit, too many choices scare people. Pretty sure that's the opposite of freedom, Frank, Jack said. Exactly, Frank replied. Kids came after school to paint signs. Retirees brought snacks. Even Trevor Diaz showed up with a drone, announcing, we're making a documentary, Finding Exit, the real maze story. Jack laughed. If you film me sweating in slow motion, I'm billing you. It was messy, slow, and wonderfully communal. People who barely talked before were suddenly arguing about where to put benches or whether marigolds were too old lady. Jack started noticing something. Building this maze, this park, was rebuilding something in him, too. His confidence, his direction, maybe even his sense of humor about life. One chilly Saturday, with frost crisping the edges of the grass, the park was almost done. The leaves had mostly fallen, layering everything in gold. Maggie brought thermoses of hot cocoa for everyone. Jack stood in the middle of his maze, and realized he felt not lost. That night, as he locked up, he heard footsteps. Cynthia stood at the gate, hands in her jacket pockets. You know, she said, this whole thing started with you getting lost. Jack grinned. That's the only thing I've ever been good at. Maybe, but look what you found after. She handed him a small plaque. It read, The Mapleton Community Maze, a reminder that every path leads somewhere. He swallowed the lump in his throat. You're really leaning into the symbolism, huh? That's what teachers do, she said, patting his shoulder. Opening day was pure small-town magic. Families arrived with picnic baskets, kids ran screaming through the new maze, and the mayor gave a speech that was twice as long as necessary. Trevor live-streamed the ribbon-cutting while shouting, History in the making, Mapleton. Jack stood beside Maggie, watching it all unfold. The wind ruffled the flags, laughter drifted through the air, and sunlight poured through trees like golden confetti. This is weird, Jack said quietly. What is? Feeling proud. Usually, I just feel mildly inconvenienced. Maggie smiled. You earned it. You built something that helps people find joy, and themselves. He looked around at the maze, the kids, the sunlight. Funny thing is, I think I built it because I needed to find myself first. She bumped his shoulder. See, you did find the exit. The narrator's voice softened here, part amused, part inspired. Because that's the thing about life in places like Mapleton, the lessons sneak up on you between cups of coffee and splinters of wood. You don't realize you're learning until someone hands you a plaque that says so. That evening, as the park emptied and the sky turned cotton candy pink, Jack walked the maze one last time. Each turn led him to one of those little signs painted by the townspeople. Keep going. Turn around if you must. Even detours count as progress. He stopped in the center, a small circular space with a single wooden bench. Sitting there, he watched the sun dip behind the silos. Somewhere in the distance, a train horn echoed, one of those American sounds that always makes you think of possibilities. He pulled out his phone and opened a note labeled, Maze Lessons. He typed, 1. You can't control the map. 2. You can laugh even when you're lost. 3. Sometimes the exit isn't where you think, it's who you become while searching. Then, as if the universe was reading his notes, Maggie texted, dinner at my place. You deserve actual food that isn't corn-related. He smiled, stood, and walked toward the exit, the real one this time. The voiceover came back, half smirking, half wise. Jack Miller didn't solve life overnight. He still owed bills, still overthought texts, still forgot trash day. But he no longer felt stuck. Because once you've been lost in a maze and found your way out, the world stops feeling like walls, it starts feeling like paths. Camera pulled back, wide aerial of Mapleton at dusk. The little maze glowed softly under string lights, kids chasing fireflies, townspeople laughing under the amber street lamps. Sometimes the best way to find the exit is to stop panicking and start enjoying the turns. Fade to black.
Like and subscribe if you want to be happy and motivate.